calling the regular meeting to order of Thursday, December 27th, 2018 at 7:31. Can everybody rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Kilanis, can you call the roll?
Assessor Moylan Cry.
Here.
Highway Commissioner Kazmierczak. Here. Clerk Giovanna's here. Supervisor Moraz.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee McKenzie.
Here.
Trustee Carabota.
Here.
Trustee Sweet.
Here. All right, first order of business, I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the minutes of the November 27th, 2018 bill pay review.
Motion to approve the minutes of the November 27, 2018 bill pay review, waive the reading.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Giovanna, can you call the roll?
Supervisor Moraz.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie.
Yes.
Trustee Carabota.
Yes.
Trustee Sweet.
Here, Todd, yes. Sorry, we didn't do it at the same time. And yes.
Next order of business is I need a motion for approval of the minutes of the November 27th, 2018 board.
Motion for approval of minutes of November 27, 2018 board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion, changes, amendments, deletions?
I have a couple of amendments.
Okay.
On page 4, at the top of the page where it says motion carried, as the first vote on a roll call as follows. I just want a clarification to add a word. Trustee Sweeney stated that the board did not receive, and I want to add the second image tech LP proposal for review. Just to be clear, because we had received the first proposal, but we had not received the second proposal.
By the time we vote?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, so my question is, this is the meeting, oh, this is not the special. Okay.
Right, this was
I
just
got you.
the 27th. And then at the bottom of the same page for discussion, I guess this should be corrected, and strongly recommendations. Discussion and strong recommendations instead of strongly by Trustee Carabota and Sweeney to, instead of keep the town fund and general assistance flat, is to decrease the town fund, general assistance, and road district levies. Because we had a lot of discussion, and I had prepared a 3-page document that's attached, and it's all reflecting on the decrease. And last, on page 5, Trustee Sweeney at the top of the page said she disagrees with the amount of the levy in the general assistance fund, and I want to add because of the excessive fund balance in general assistance. Okay. And that's it. For a second?
Second.
Because of the
Excessive fund balance.
In general system.
Okay, so Trustee Sweeney has made an amended motion, followed by, seconded by Trustee Carabota. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Giovanna, can you call the roll?
Supervisor Moraz. Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie.
Yes.
Trustee Carabota.
Yes.
Trustee Sweet.
Yes.
All right, and now, does anybody have any public participation? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve general assistance expenditures.
Motion to approve payroll for pay dates of November 30, 2018 and December 14, 2018
and general assistance checks number 51674 through check 51734 in the amount of $79,355.87.
A second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Giovannis, can you call the roll? And everybody passing down.
Supervisor Morant?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the road district expenses.
Motion to approve payroll for pay dates of November 30th, 2018, and December 14, 2018, and road district checks number 20680 through check number 20719 in the amount of $106,851.96.
A second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Giovannis, can you call the roll?
Excuse me, who seconded?
I did.
Trustee McKenzie.
Supervisor Morant?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
All right, and finally, I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the general town fund expenditures, which should have an S on it.
Okay. Motion to approve payroll for pay dates of November 30th, 2018, and December 14, 2018, and general town fund checks number 56418 through check number 56486 in the amount of $302,831.14.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney.
On check number 56461, I'd like to make a change to the line item stating reimbursement and substitute with the word stipend.
That's absolutely fine. With that amendment, is there any further?
No.
Okay. I'll second the amendment, and Clerk Giovannis can call it.
Supervisor Morant?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
For the next item, presentation of the check to the honor flight, I'm going to make a motion to table that to January. The reason being, once we changed it from a Tuesday, this date
Thursday.
to Thursday, this date did not work. So I need a second on that motion.
Second.
Motion, having a motion and a second, Clerk Giovannis, can you call it?
Supervisor Morant?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
All right. Moving right along, new business, we have agency funding allocation. So, I'm sorry, new business is first. And first of all, it's the hardest, as Carol used to say, echo her, hardest thing to do because we have so many worthy agencies. So, I applaud everybody's very hard work in doing their figures and whatnot. And as you know, the board members are five board members. Suggested amounts are average for the final initial motion amount. So I'm going to make a motion to pass the agency funding allocation as indicated by the final column of the board average, which total would be $442,740. So I need a second so we can get this discussion started.
Second.
Okay, having a motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion? Trustee Sweeney.
First discussion is in adding up, and anyone's welcome to double check this, but I added up the 5 of us that are board members, 4 trustees, and the supervisor, and divided that up by 5, and I come up with a board average of $438,240. Not what it's reflected on this is $442,740.
Rich, back there, I believe, Christina checked this. I did not, I checked her out. So, let's add it up again.
You know, I checked as well and didn't see that, but it could be an error.
I get the same figure that trustee Sweeney presents. For $438,240.
And the total amount I come up with is $2,191,200 divided by 5.
Oh, I think the difference is that for District 63, Susan, your number is not
Oh, right,
included
you're
in
not
there.
reflected, because you're
Is
recused.
this recused?
Yep. That is the difference. I mean, Dave can check it while he's on the, but trustee Sweeney had to recuse herself from that. So, but we can discuss the motion, and, you know, we can add up all the figures and make sure that they're correct, obviously.
So how did you use my numbers then to reflect the average of 442? Can you
It
tell
would
me?
be averaged, I believe, Rich, between 4, right, for District 63?
Yes, for that particular agency, it was the 4 people who did give a recommendation and divided that by 4 to get the average of 22,500.
But that really wouldn't change the total. The total is either gonna be what it's gonna be. You see what she's saying? I mean, it,
Right. Right. Whether you.
unless it was taken out after.
Whether you give, yeah, whether you give 0 or
Right.
reduce or whatever.
Right.
Right, you're right, that's correct.
So we just basically, and I don't know if she did take it out after.
No, what I'm coming up with it is that would be the difference, because if you add in the average amount of 22,500,
Oh, so you didn't include 20,
Yeah, that explains, because I just looked at the bottom.
yeah, no, so
Those.
the final lower right-hand bottom average is just the total of all of the column, all of the figures above in that column, there where it says board average.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's a total of all the averages.
so that number is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's the number I thought Susan was saying was incorrect.
Because
Right, because she didn't-
lowered it by
There's a cross.
4,500.
That's why.
Right.
I
Okay.
went across.
Oh,
So now it's
okay.
basically $4,500, which should be like 1/5 of that that's recused, right? Which is 22.5.
Right. 22.5 plus 4.3.
Because the difference from 442,740 and the 438,240, which is what we all ended up, is at 4,500 times, which is on 1/5 of the vote. So they took off that 22,500. They took off that 1/5 of it. If that makes sense to you.
The figure would probably come out the same if we divided by 5 the amount of District 63, but we divided by 4 because there were only 4 recommendations for that amount. So I think that's what's accounting for the difference there.
We can double check.
Right, so let's move
Do we
to,
have the Excel spreadsheet back there, Richard?
Well, if we do add up
Just
those
on
numbers
paper.
and divide
Yeah, I did go over all of the calculations and everything seemed to be correct.
It does equal 22.5. If you add up your.
Yeah, no, the average is correct. But you would think it's.
Susan, is the difference that you were seeing 14,800?
No, the difference, so on the paper, it shows 442,740. And when you actually add what we each totaled at the bottom of our columns is 438,240. So the difference between those two is
so are you saying,
4,500, and if you multiply 4,500 times 5, that's my 1/5, I guess, of the 2250 that we took off, if that's the right way to do it, because
So it's a difference of 4,500.
I also think
how about this? How about we do our substantive discussion and whatever it ends up to be, it ends up to be.
Sounds like a great idea.
Because otherwise, I mean, everybody can sit here and do math all night.
Oh, I see, yeah, so the difference is 4,500, so that would be 22,500 divided by 5.
Right, that's
So that is
1/5
what
is
accounts
what
for
I
the
was saying,
difference.
that's my
Right.
1/5.
Yeah,
So which is the proper way to go?
I don't know.
To take it as a zero? Is the board average, well, that would be, you just take it as a zero. You take it as, you take the number divided by 4, the total divided by 4.
Yes.
The proper way to go would be, I think what Rich did, because it's not really a zero, it's a recusal, so it should be divided by 4,
Right.
because otherwise she's voting.
Right,
Right.
And she can't
And it
vote,
is
and doesn't
25.
want to be on record as voting for 0 for District 63.
right, so it is 22.5, is
Yeah.
correct.
And the board average column does add up correctly to 442.
That's what I thought, so that was what I couldn't figure out what was going on here.
Right, so it's.
Right.
so
Okay, all right, so now let's move to substantively. So, you know, this is the time, if anybody has any changes or additions or switches or any, because we are lower by,
I think we should increase the center of concern.
okay, and that is number 4.
39.4 seems low.
And so so would you want to put an extra 600 and make it 40
Yeah,
even?
yes.
Which was recommended by trustee McKenzie, and Christie. I recommended 50, they requested 40. And then we have Susan at 32, Dana at 39, Marie at 39.4, Rich
I
at
think,
39.
if I can,
Sure.
I think the fact that we're lower really is not, I mean, these numbers that were put in, at least speaking for myself, I'm pretty confident with everyone else, that we put in an awful lot of time coming up with each of our own individual numbers, and the fact that we're paying less out than we paid last year really is not a good reason with taxpayer funds to be putting in 600 here or 500 there or whatever. I think that for someone's opinion to stand as far as the averaging is concerned, that we should stick with the numbers that were each presented. Because I know I put a lot of time into my numbers.
Oh, no, and I appreciate
So,
it, everybody did.
And I think.
But this is traditionally where we like we did last year, and The only reason I was saying this is because we have the 500,000 is the limit. So nobody went, like, we've been very cost effective. And so if you look at the 2019 total request, it was $655,658.77. So, it wasn't that I want to add, a ton of money everywhere, like, and ruin everybody's numbers, but if there's a consensus in places that some people, and this is the time and place to do it. So.
By the way, I said my piece.
Okay.
It could go either way, where if we're at 442, 740, we can knock off 740 and bring it down to 442.
No, I would like to increase avenues of independence and center of concern closer to their original request. These charities, they do such great work and they are such a gift to our community. That's the main function of Maine Township, of township government, is to fund these agencies. So we are not exceeding our limit by doing that. So in my opinion, I think that we should be more generous, especially in light of the fact that the state has hurt these agencies over the last 4 years tremendously.
And I'll say for this, with respect to Center of Concern, they actually made us their partner of the decade, which we've been working with them for so many years and they are the people that sponsor or one of the sponsors of the Student Government Day, which I'm sure you all read about in the newspaper, is one of the really best programs that we have, where the kids act as us and do this agency funding and ask questions, and they come to about the same conclusions we do. So I'm not opposed to adding 600 to Center of Concern and 1,200 to avenues.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, Trustee McKenzie.
I think all these agencies do really good work, and I especially know of Avenues of Independence and Center of Concern's work, and that they do great work. And we listen to all of these agencies present to us, and we all, I'm sure, thought long and hard about how we were going to allocate the number that we want to allocate. I think that it's dangerous and it's not fair to cherry pick now and change the way that we were going to look at how to allocate. We wanted to average, that's what we decided to do last year, that's what we did. There were a couple of outliers last year that we had a lot of discussion about and voted on, but I don't support cherry picking, because there are a lot of, I could go right down the list if we're gonna increase. Well, I already went through the list and I already made my decisions on what to fund, and so did you, and so did Laura, and so did the other trustees. And now we're averaging, and the numbers are shaking out to where, we're within our budget, and we did it fair and square for everybody. I don't see why we're going to, because people know Center of Concern more, they're our partner, that we're going to treat them differently than every other agency that took the same amount of time to fill out all the paperwork, to come and present, and to tell us what they do and what they need the money for.
I think you misunderstood me.
Okay.
That was where I started. I think that traditionally, this is the way we've always done it. We've come before the board with our averages, and then we discussed each charity or each, individually, because as you know, we cannot discuss it as a group outside of here. So then we went through and we discussed each one as a group, and I'm not picking favorites. I'm saying that that's where I started. I would like to go through each one and discuss, you know, the amounts that we're giving them. I have no objection to that. I think they're all fine. And that's why they're here. That's why we funded them before. That's why we're funding them tonight. So I don't think that the representation of cherry picking is a fair one. And that's just where I was starting.
We did not do that last year.
We did not, but traditionally, over the years, that's how it's always been done.
Okay, well,
So
that's not what we did last year, so.
Well, but that's
May I
the
be
way it's
recognized?
been done before that, before last year.
It has how, it's been done, it was an opening point. Last year we did it on some, but we also have time constraints. Trustee Sweeney.
I concur with what trustee Carabona as well as trustee McKenzie have just said, because that was looking at the averages and the time we put in to come up with our individual decisions, I think makes sense, and to change because somebody makes a better case for something based on, I actually concur with what trustee McKenzie is saying. It does seem like we're picking favorites, and I think it's a very hard decision. For some of us, we look at it like we're looking at trying to cut back on some expenses. And so, you know, it's not an easy decision to do. Just because they've asked for $655,000, we have to consider the community and the impact it has. If it continues to go up and it's $1 million in 2 years, do we want to keep funding like that? So I think there were decisions made by each one of us individually, and we came up with that, and the formula was to actually look at the average. Otherwise, there's no point in having a board average. And then just, you know, trying to make a case for individual charities. I as well think there's some tremendous charities here. I don't think anyone's going to argue that we wouldn't be giving this kind of money to each one of these charities if we didn't feel like there was significant value to these charities and what they offer to our community. So it's not, you know, to be considered or looked at negatively on any one of these charities or favorites on others. I think that we just did the best job we could, and we shouldn't have our individual vote be compromised in any way because we're 1/5 of it.
Trustee Jones wants to be recognized, and then
I
I
just
need to
wanna
say
point
one
out
thing
one-
to exclude an agency that is on here.
I just want to point out one thing. We have discussions over and over again from the two trustees at the end of the table regarding how much of a excess we have in our reserves. And yet, when we have an opportunity to do something good for the community and lower the reserves by funding agencies that are really needed in our community, you two have the lowest amounts. And I just don't understand it. You can't have it both ways. You can't spend down the reserves and complain about how excessive the reserves are. And then when you have an opportunity to spend it on something good and something that can actually help the township and the residents of the township, you come in at these low numbers and refuse to budge. I don't see what the harm is of having a conversation about, yes, we have the averages, that's a starting point, in my opinion.
Maybe recognized.
And they don't have to be
No, I'm
rigid,
next, and then you.
and it doesn't have to be a rigid number.
I have to say something about Manasseh. They cannot be funded because of the issue that they cannot, they were, if you recall at the agency funding hearing, they had a choice between getting funded through the Riley Bayel check or through funding. And they're still with the Riley Bayel check. So they can't do both, so we can't fund them. So I think there was one person who voted for them, so I think that 700 should be zero, in keeping with what we said at agency funding and what the rule is about that. And then we put that somewhere else. do you guys recall this? Okay. So, like, I would propose to put it at center of concern. If somebody else wants to put it elsewhere, that's fine. But I wanted to say that before, because that was something that stood out to me, and like Kim said, you can't send individual emails about this, so this is why it's an opening discussion.
I wouldn't have an objection to that going to center of concern.
Okay.
That'll keep our number the same, and it'll satisfy.
All right.
The other way we could do is just take it off completely, but I think the center for concern, $700, it would be worthwhile.
There was one other agency that I had an issue with, that I personally, in my opinion, think that it's duplicative, and should be allocated to somewhere else. And that would be the Zacharias Sexual Abuse Center. They have a $12 million budget. And we are very, very strict with respect to new agencies. Very, very, very strict. And I know we all try to be very generous. And, but $12 million, and considering we have three other agencies, Northwest Casa, we have the Children's Advocacy Center, and then we also have, there's one other one that, Harbor, that does sex abuse services. So one of our other priorities is not to be duplicative. And I know the impulse to give is strong, but we like to do it not duplicative. So does anybody have a problem? And actually I think that, I was clear. Do you have any problem moving it, or do you want to keep it?
I don't have any problem with it. I mean, I was the only one, so I mean, we could vote and I would be voted out, so that's fine. But as far as duplicative, I mean, I think the way you're using it, we could say that about all of the mental health care agencies. So I don't think you mean duplicative in that way, because, I mean, a lot of agencies have overlap.
They do have overlap, but each mental health does something a little bit different. Like, for example, Jocelyn gives us a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Leiden has no waiting. There's certain...
They still provide the same services.
Right.
that's
But whereas
duplicative
Zacharias didn't do like anything that the other three didn't.
I don't have my notes. I forgot my device tonight, so I can't look at my notes on that. That was bad.
And they were not located in the town.
But, I remember reviewing that because it is a new agency and feeling that, they should get something. But I'm the only one, so no, I don't have an objection to moving it or getting rid of it. I obviously am the only one who felt that it was warranted.
Well, don't be feeling bad.
No, I'm
It's
just saying.
Everybody has to become new at some point. It's just $12 million budget with very excessive salaries. Was something the mental health examples don't, or at least the ones we have. So I understand your point. I was not going to fund Catholic Charities at all, because the problem with that and I don't know if they're gonna be able to do this, was I really don't wanna compete with ourselves. But I did because, you know, the Sunday supper thing you talked about, you know, so that was sort of a nod to, you know, trying to do that. But when I looked at it, and I'll keep it, you know, but what I'd like to say for the record that I want them to do is, from when I read their grant or their proposal, it was all together, like, you know, so I am proposing that we separate that out. You know, that money get earmarked literally only for Sunday suppers, that it, not for the food pantry, not, you know, because we don't want to be in competition with ourselves, it's silly. So I want to, you know, so that's why we have this discussion.
I'm good with that.
All right, so going
I'm
back,
good with the 500 for Zacharias, if that's what, the rest of the world. I don't have a problem with that.
But since I'm the only one they'll do, I don't want to be the outlier.
You wanna put that with, consider putting that in with the avenue?
That's fine.
oh, good idea, Dave.
And that's a good
Okay, so we're gonna compromise. Avenues will then be 5,100, no, 49, I can't. 49,100, correct?
Can you put Northwest Casa, I mean, they're a good agency, they don't ask for a lot, just give them their $40 for $2,000. Can you stick that in there?
I certainly don't.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
$40. Anybody have a problem?
Does anybody really have a problem with $40
$2,000.
to make that around to
Northwest
Northwest
Casa.
Casa?
It's,
There's always been a good agency, they don't.
they asked for 2,000.
That's
and
Mark.
we're Giving
I know.
1960.
It's the same thing I said before. Like, if we're gonna round up or round down, it should be the same for everybody.
Well, I
And I'm
think
not
that,
advocating for that, I'm just saying.
You're just
no,
getting-
I understand, we're
You're
just
placing the
discussing.
$500 somewhere, and they've just been a good agency, I've known, even when I was a trustee, they,
What we're saying is that,
I think Susie's saying split the 500
Yeah, so 460 avenues
Right.
and 40 to the,
to, right.
oh, okay. All right.
That's good.
All right, so, all right, hang on. Northwest Casa gets 40 for a 2,000, and then 460 goes to. Will somebody add up 48,600 plus 460?
It's $49,060.
Okay, 49,060. All right. Cool.
Okay. And then also 2,000.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion?
Supervisor Rex?
Oh, sure.
I just want to make sure, and it doesn't matter to me either way, but we usually don't take on a lot of new agencies, but because we're doing averages, even if, just want to make sure the board's aware, even if one or two people on the panel or the board members put in that they'd like to fund a new agency, it's coming out obviously in the column that there's going to be some type of funding, so we are at this point taking on 4 new agencies. So I just want to make sure, that you're aware of that.
Well, I voted 0 on them, other than Catholic Charities.
Yeah.
You're talking about open communities, right? Is one of them.
There was 5, and I know you just took away Zacharias, but it does look like we're now taking on 4 new ones. And I just want to make sure that the board is still okay with that.
And what are the 4 new ones?
It looks like we're taking on, well, Catholic Charities was one.
Right?
The
Orchard Village.
Orchard Village,
Oh,
Open Communities,
I forgot
and
about Orchard.
there's one more.
Orchid Village?
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the other one was,
Zachariah.
open community.
Connection for the Homeless,
Okay.
Oh, where's that?
It's there towards the top.
Oh,
Under children advocacy.
okay, well, two of you gave them money. So, Connections for the Homeless has more, like, support. Orchid Village. Kimley's, and Open Communities, clearly. So right now, it would be, yeah, that's a tough precedent, taking on, how many? 3 or 4? I'm seeing.
You knocked out Zachariah.
Yeah, you just knocked out that price.
That's right.
So now you only have 3 left.
You're right, we have 4. Okay.
Yeah, Open Communities was a new one. Orchard Village is 2. Catholic Charities is 3, and Connections for the Homeless was 4. Well, next year, I told Rich, yeah, some of the screening is gonna be a little more, specific. Rich, are any of those new ones the latecomers?
No, there were 2 currently funded agencies who turned in their applications late, and they were disqualified from funding as a result. So those aren't listed on here.
I'm at the board's pleasure about those. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I think funding 4 new agencies is going to.
Sometimes it's good to put some money into them if there's consideration for these agencies, and when they come back next year, you see what they've done and proven themselves.
Right.
If they, if you give them a little bit of incentive, they come back, you say, well, okay, we did a little bit, what are you asking for? What have you done? What have you accomplished? So maybe you're giving them a little bone. I mean, you're not really giving them a whole heck of a lot of money,
Right.
but at least a consideration that you listen to them and you think that they might be able to prove themselves. So next year, when they come back again, you question them a little bit further and see the contribution to the township, our residents, and you go from there.
Yeah, no, I think that's every new agency, was, or every other establishment was new at a certain point. The only one I really, because most of them didn't ask for the loan, a little concerned about.
I think you all did pretty good. I mean, you got some lows and you got some highs and it kind of averaged out. I think what you've made this transition and made it a couple of exceptions, and moved a couple numbers around. I think it's really an attribute to the board to make these decisions. I would follow.
Yeah.
So I just want to say a couple things. We're going to earmark, I want to watch Open Communities next year because they came in on a new agency at 40,000, and that's a bit much. But they're, like Susie pointed out, I think they're getting 240. 1,100. And I do want to commend the board for doing a very good job. I want to make sure that this vote includes earmarking the Catholic Charities only for the Sunday supper. And that's it. So our new numbers that I'm going to make an amended motion to do. It's going to be the same amount as the total, but it's going to reflect $49,600 $60 for Avenues to Independence. It's going to reflect, does somebody have the addition for Center of Concern? 40,100 for Center of Concern. It's going to reflect an earmark for Sunday supper only for Catholic Charities. It's going to reflect 2,000 for Northwest Casa. And I think that's all. It's going to remove Zacharias Center. And with those amendments, can I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, and assuming no further discussion, I'm going to call the question.
Supervisor Morass?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
Congratulations, people. Shortest we've ever done this. All right.
Supervisor Morales, I'm sorry, can I just clarification on this last? I think we talked about taking out the surprise, and did you make note of that too?
Yes.
And then answer
Yes.
in your motion?
Yes.
The 3,500 or 25?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, next order of business is approval of resolution 2008-9 for our scheduled regular board meetings, 2019, 2020. You all have them in your hand. Resolution number 2018-19, schedule of regular board meetings. Be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Maine Township. The following is the schedule of regular board meetings for the budget year commencing March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020. 2019 will be March 26th, April 23rd, May 28th, June 25th, July 23rd, August 27th, September 24th, October 22nd, November 26th, December 23rd, please note that's a Monday, 2020, January 28th, February 25th. And as people all know, all meetings are on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 6:30, bill review, 7:30 board meeting, Township Hall. And due to the Christmas holiday next year, the December 24th board meeting had to be rescheduled to Monday, December 23rd. Can I have a motion for this?
Sure. Motion to approve the resolution number 2018-9, schedule of regular board meetings, 2019 through February 25th, 2020.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, is there any discussion?
May I be recognized?
Sure.
On the December 23, which is a Monday, I know the problem is here, when it's before Christmas, for me, it's very difficult. And of course, Christmas falls on Wednesday, the 25th. 27th would be Friday, so I'm proposing either the 27th, which is a Friday, or the 31st, which is a Monday, which is right before New Year.
But we can't do that Monday.
It's New Year's Eve.
It's New Year's Eve. The 31st we can't do,
What do we do
What
the
about
20th?
the week
What
before?
about the 26th?
the day after Christmas,
What about the week
as opposed to
before?
2 days before. I mean, people can miss a meeting. So wait, I'm sorry, the week before,
Would be
I'm fine with the week
would be
before.
Or Friday, the 27th, I mean, Friday, the 27th.
why not the Tuesday before?
17th?
well, because Denise will never have, I mean, that doesn't work.
Doesn't work?
That's 3 weeks. We can't get the bills, we can't do
Only
it.
they do it like the next week.
No, not now, like this, but next year.
No,
Yeah,
actually,
as
they
if
want
you
to
were
have
gonna
it
do
on
it.
Wednesday.
What?
December 17th.
Or the 19th?
Right, you couldn't do that. With the board meeting on November 26th and then December 17th, that's impossible.
I mean, that's.
Nothing will be
I'll
closed.
I'll be processing bills on like the 11th
Right.
of the next month.
It's not,
Friday, the 27th.
no, I won't be able to do that. But what about the,
About the 26th, you can't do that?
I can make the 26 is better than the 23rd.
the Monday, the Thursdays, the day after is better than 2 days before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, something is always going to, how many want, here's how we're gonna do it. How many want December 23rd, the Monday, and how many want December 26th, the Wednesday?
I would prefer the
The
26th.
26th is actually Thursday.
Oh, I meant 2018. The Thursday, the day after Christmas. I likely will not be there because I plan to be out of town for Christmas next year. But somebody else can be, no problem with them. I also prefer the 23rd. You prefer the 23rd?
Yes.
I host Christmas Eve, so the 23rd is.
Christmas Eve is the 24th.
I know, but
Oh,
I'm
I
ready for the 24th.
So you
That's
prefer
the
the
26th.
26th?
26.
Susan?
26th.
Okay, so with that somebody else will be, leading this meeting, because like I said, I will be out of town. Then, obviously, if this vote's gonna fail, I'll change it. Yeah. Can you do December 26th?
I mean, because the bills will be prepared, I process the bills the Tuesday before the meeting, so, I mean, by Wednesday, the board packets would go out that Friday. Yeah, that would be fine. That will work.
That is. So rather than go through this whole rigmarole of voting down this, re-voting that, so are you amending this? You amending this? Somebody down there amending this?
Motion to amend to reflect only one change, and that would be the December meeting being not December 23rd Monday, but December 26th Thursday.
I thought maybe we were going to discuss more than that. but-
Why are they here Christmas?
I know, because you said that's the only change, and I just, like, as far as.
No, we can't change another meeting. Oh, wait, what
November
meeting?
26th is what?
Can I just get clarification? Do you know, is Thanksgiving November 28th?
It's always the fourth Thursday in November. So
Okay,
whatever
so
meeting.
it's the 28th, and they're talking about the meeting on Tuesday. I may have to work on that, so I just don't want to schedule. So it's the fourth, I was thinking it was the fourth, I need to check. So, I'll figure that out.
And keep in mind, people, we gotta pass a levy.
Yeah, the 28th is Thanksgiving Day.
That levy has to be due, has to be on the December
Maybe 2 days.
23rd Monday. So,
So we're doing
Just like this.
2 days before Thanksgiving.
it has to be in by the fourth Tuesday of December.
Thanksgiving is on the 28th.
Yes.
Right. So that's why the meeting is our regularly scheduled fourth Tuesday of the 26th.
We'll probably have to have another special, don't you think?
Sure. Okay.
Or not?
So we have a second on it?
Yes.
We have a second.
On what?
On what?
On the one amendment, changing December 23rd
Oh, okay.
to December 26th. So that motion to amend, we have a second.
Okay.
Who
All right.
seconded? I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna call that question. Clerk Jalamas, will you call the roll?
Supervisor Morant?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
All right. Next order of
And I'm
business.
just want to mention, because you guys need to sign the resolution, so somebody needs to
Oh.
make a change.
I did.
Okay.
I mean, do I have a, oh,
Just
wait.
one,
I did.
the one with the folder, yes.
Oh, man, I didn't start saying anything. So,
You want me to do it?
I got it. So this is December 26th.
6.
6 and
Thursday.
It does say that in parentheses.
Oh, right.
And that would change down in lower, so don't worry.
Oh, yeah, here, I'll change it
Yeah.
to Thursday. December 26th. And this has been all checked for Jewish holidays, right?
Yes. Jewish say.
Believe
I heard.
Okay. Next, is salary study. Trustee McKenzie had requested, and I had seconded this request to have this on the agenda for discussion and vote to hire a company to conduct a salary study. As she has mentioned at previous meetings, I have echoed, and I spoke to John Brand, who gave me the name, contact information, and background of the person who did the Park Ridge one at a very, it may be a different cost for us because we're a much smaller community, but it was a reasonable cost. It does not need to go out to bid. The amount of this will be lower than a bid amount. So the only thing, none of us, neither Claire or I, had time to get any numbers. The only thing that I'm requesting to vote on tonight is that we do a salary study with, we will vote on, it will be on the January agenda, picking the place, correct? All right, so I'll make a motion to conduct a salary study of the Maine Township employees, all employees, part-time, full-time, with respect to other townships, and with determining the company later. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
Yes, if I may.
Sure, trustee Carabello.
Studies are always wonderful things. We had, but a study of what other governmental bodies do as far as payroll versus this governmental body, the 7,000 governmental bodies we have in Illinois. Myself, I don't find that helpful. I would find it helpful to, if there were to be a study, and if there were need to be a study, I would find it helpful if it was comparing salaries, etc., to comparable positions outside the governmental realm. Also, to take into account the residents of Maine Township, what their salaries have been, what their pay increases have been, if any, what financial impact they've had when it comes to their home, their own individual incomes and their familial income, I think is what would be something of interest. But I don't think finding out that one governmental agency or another governmental agency is paying the same that we do, or they pay more, or they pay less. I myself don't find that to be helpful, and so that would be my position with regard to that. And I don't think it would be a good use of taxpayer funds. Last year we went through this, and WirePoints came up with a study. They did a very thorough study of our community itself. They looked at the income averages throughout our community of 135,000 residents. There was some focus on the residents that struggle more in our society, in our community financially, which is the lower 24%. They found that the salaries in Maine Township were way more than what would be considered competitive. The increases are way more than what's considered competitive. And then we also look at the overall the overall environment of our financial community, not only in Maine Township, but in my village of Niles or Park Ridge or in our county of Cook, and it's not good. The Chicago Tribune came out with an excellent article, I believe it was last week, about 4 or 5 days ago, that started ringing the Paul Revere ride on, giving us support of Paul Revere ride on all the people that are continuing to leave the state and that we're not replenishing. It's interesting that the article comes out after the election, not before, so it's not something to influence an election. It's something that's based on actual statistics. I also believe that Susan worked a lot with wire points when it came to those numbers, and there was a lot of investigation as to the numbers wire points used in their total overall study of the community, and that those numbers all held up. So I think at this point, studies are great, but a study of, gee, let's look at what other townships are paying their staff compared to our staff is really something that I myself don't see as being beneficial.
Last year at our closed session meetings, you guys asked me to do that, so apparently did find it beneficial. Alright,
The study I requested did not limit itself to, let's compare to what other governmental
no,
bodies do.
actually, you did request that I find out what other townships pay for comparable positions. Absolutely.
Whoever did, I was looking for
Okay,
refresh
so
of the community.
this motion's being contemplated.
So I'm also asking the board to renew its review and consideration of the report of the study done by Wire Points, which was summarized in the article that I presented to the board, and that was also made part of the record at that time.
Alright, trustee Joe.
I just want to point out that Wire Points is not a legitimate news outlet. It's a political propaganda paper that's related to a political think tank. It is not a legitimate news. It's not recognized as a legitimate news outlet. And so for us to base our decisions on salaries on that would be not very beneficial or helpful.
That was raised, by the way, by trustee Jones last year. That was responded to by Wire Points. They were quite clear that they're a think tank. The studies that they use are actual and correct numbers. There was no number, not one number in reply that was refuted by trustee Jones or this board. There was not one item that was ever discredited in that report, in that study. It's simply to say, hey, look, they're a political animal and they're not news recognized. I'm not looking for political animals. I'm not looking for news. What I'm looking for are studies that are done by think tanks. That's what Wire Points does.
Excuse me, but I wouldn't refute the numbers because I wouldn't waste my time. It's not a legitimate study based on legitimate numbers, based on a legitimate news outlet. So for you to keep bringing it up, it's just political propaganda. So if we're going to do a study, we're going to spend the time to do a salary study, let's do an actual salary study, which is based on comparable salaries in other communities. The Wire Points one, I don't care what they wrote about me, whether I refuted it. I wouldn't refute it because I wouldn't waste my time refuting it. It's not a legitimate news agency outlet or a study group. It's a think tank connected with a political think tank. That's it. And they can say whatever they want. It doesn't make it legitimate.
So the whole point, first of all, hang on. Trustee Joan, Mackenzie, I don't think the intent, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the intention of this salary study was to either compare it to the private sector or to Wire Points. I don't think that entered into our mind. Incorrect?
What, I don't know, this is not my area. I don't know how to do a salary study. That's why I wanted to have a professional do a salary study, and that I would look to that professional
Correct.
as to what source is. I don't think they should stick to one source for, just other township governments, but at the same time, I don't know if it's relevant to look at the lower 24% or 25% of the population's income, because that's the lower 25%. I don't know how that would correlate, but I'm not the expert. That's why I think we should pay an expert to tell us how you should view this and how we should be looking at it, because we came into this with no knowledge, or at least I did. And, you know, I have employees. I am an owner of a law firm. I employ other lawyers. I do make decisions on salaries, but we live in a very specific world, and I know that world. I don't know all of these other departments and what the correct ranges are. So that's what I would want a consultant for.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So that's the current motion on the table. And trustee Sweeney, you have comments?
So, trustee Jones.
It doesn't have to be directed about higher points. I think we've.
No, but have you looked at the Illinois Department of Revenue or the Illinois Comptroller's Office numbers or the Census Bureau to look at the statistics and how the Maine Township payroll has increased as compared to the average household income of those residents that are homeowners that are actually paying for the salaries of the employees here to determine how that compares?
Well, I actually have a legitimate news article, I wish I had brought it, I believe it was from the Wall Street Journal, that did refute all of the things that you're saying, and how the.
I'm asking you a question, a direct question.
So this
Have
meeting,
you looked-
No, we're going off track here.
No,
So
this is,
that's my answer.
No, this isn't
not
relevant to the,
I have not completed my point.
But that, I have completed my point, and I have answered it, and now we will go to the salary study that we're discussing.
right. So
Not
we're
an
gonna vote.
argument.
You have looked at that information or have not?
I've looked at, read articles that are legitimate.
Have you
that talk
looked for
about-
yourself
I
at
don't
these
think
sources of the
that's really
Census Bureau?
A question
And-
that you can ask me, Susan. That's not.
Boy, as a trustee and a fiduciary, I think it's an important
But you
question.
only read.
I've gone and looked myself at data and compiled
Well,
data
good for you,
and
but
looked
we're
at
not
data.
hiring you for the salary study, so that's the point.
I think what I
that's the
hear you
answer.
saying, that this is not relevant.
No.
Listen,
And I think it's
That's why I'm
extremely-
stopping this
it's
discussion.
actually not.
I'm calling the question.
So, no, I am not finished. I'd like to make my point. I have a
No, but
presentation.
your point is against
First of all,
her
I have done
point,
some-
which
No,
none of
I
it is
have not finished. I would really like to be recognized. I have my time that I think I can speak, please.
You've been,
But,
stop talking.
Susan, finish.
Maine Township payrolls have grown twice as fast as household incomes have between 2009 and 2017. So if you look at what inflation has been during that time frame, it's been 14%. Our household incomes have have not kept pace with inflation. So the people that are actually living in the Maine Township area of Niles, Park Ridge, and primarily Niles, Park Ridge, and
Wait, Susan, I'm sorry.
Explain.
This is all repetitive.
I'm
You've
not
said-
finished.
It doesn't matter.
I've
I'm
only-
calling you out of order because I literally.
may I have the attorney's ruling on this, please?
This is up
I'm-
to the chair at this point.
I'm
It's
calling
gonna
the
be-
question. The question
have
has
debate.
nothing to do with
The
this.
question is about salary studies,
But it's
and I am
just a
making
study.
a point that I think is, that should be
It's already been
considered for
added
us.
to every pack of minutes that we've ever had.
No, this is brand new that I got this afternoon.
Susan,
Why
I'm
don't you
sorry.
make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion?
Trustee McKenzie,
I would think that the salary study consultant that we're going to hire is going to look at what you're referencing. And if they weren't, then I think that you should be allowed to provide that. And they
Of
should
course.
consider it as part of the salary.
I believe the motion is limited to comparing salaries from one township to another. There's
no, it
language
was
that-
to hire somebody, to let them do what they're going to do.
And why do we need to do that?
Okay,
Well, since it was, what I asked to be put on the agenda.
absolutely.
I can tell you why I would like to see it, because I felt very handicapped last year when we were reviewing salaries, because I don't have a frame of reference, and I can't do all that research. I don't think that's our job. And so I need somebody to tell me, this is what you need to look at, This is the world that you need to look at. These are the sources that are relevant, and this is how you should go about it, just like any other big decision that has to be made for a business. That's why.
And that is why I said, well, but that is why I seconded it. All right, because that is, all right, rather than us
I mean, have we?
spending every meeting
when we're-
talking about
Have we lost a lot of people that are leaving because of salary? Have we
I'm not answering more
not
questions,
been able to
I'm calling the
fulfill
question.
positions because people aren't responding to posted salaries?
Actually,
That's what I'm.
yeah, we don't get it.
So, my point is that
Okay,
I still
so-
think it's a very important
So you
consideration
can vote
to
no.
look at.
And you're still out of order.
Trustee Sweeney, what I'm
I'm not
trying to
out of
say.
order when I have the right to be able to
Okay,
speak, and it's
I'm
less, that is
trying
not
to
out
do
of
this
order.
again. What I'm saying is, it's premature. It's either, like, right now, we want to have the information from an expert that tells us, are we high, low? I mean, when I provided the information last year, that wasn't good enough to some members, and I don't want it on me. I'm not the expert in salaries. Like Claire, I own a law firm. I know that world. I know what salaries I'm going to give. I know what raises I'm going to give, because I know that world. I know this world. I know what the ranges are, and I know that we're in the lower third. I'm not rehashing any of that. We are merely doing a motion to conduct a salary study. And that is the motion on the table, that's the motion I'm calling the question on. Clerk Jill Emmons, can you call?
May I just?
No, I
It's a
called the
motion.
question.
It's a motion to conduct a salary study, that's the exact language.
For the employees, part-time and full-time, of Maine Township. Yes, that is.
Without a cap, without an amount, without
That,
what
okay.
you're comparing it
As
to,
I
without.
previously stated, that will be in January when you vote on a vendor, a person. It will certainly be below a minimum. Trustee McKenzie.
Can I just ask Susan, what is your objection?
Right.
So that maybe we can air that out.
Okay, thank you for asking. I think the
Although I
thing is,
did call the question.
when I look at, the comparison to those people that are actually funding the salary increases.
No.
No, that's not what she's
I don't go down
asking.
that rabbit hole because I can't answer to that, and I don't think, I hear,
But
These
you're
guys
not
not
allowing
being
me to
able to-
finish, and then it's not factored in, so I don't know if you want to hear my opinion.
What we're trying to discuss is whether or not we should hire somebody to help us with a salary study versus doing what we did last year. So do you have an objection? All that stuff, that goes to the salary consultant. You want them to review that? I agree, that should be, everything that we all.
My concern is
want.
people are leaving Illinois because
Oh my God.
we have a problem
Doing a salary study?
with what's going on with, no, people are leaving Illinois because of expenditures of government.
Us hiring a
And
salary
it has a lot to do with
No, it
it.
doesn't.
Because if we're paying 30% more, and we see those kind of increases over the last 7 years, as compared to the average homeowner that's only getting 13%.
They're leaving because of the
And
school
that's a
boards, not
threefold
because of the
increase.
township.
Then, pardon me?
They're leaving because of the school boards, not the township.
I think we all contribute to peace.
Yeah.
There's 1,400 townships in Illinois, there's 7,000
You're on
taxing
soapbox.
bodies, and
You were out of line.
I
You're
was
on the
asked a
soapbox.
question.
But you
Yeah,
haven't
but you
answered the
are
question.
answering the
You're
question.
going on your
74%
soapbox.
of our
Yes.
Okay,
She asked me a lot. And
Why
I'm
would
trying
you
to
tell me
answer
it's
a
not
lot.
your question?
So if people are getting
Is it
threefold,
the cost
if we're
of the
giving,
salary study, or is it the salary study itself that you would not appreciate or view as helpful?
well, I think the problem with the salary study is if we compare to other townships,
We're
then
saying-
everybody.
We're saying whatever the
Experts-
expert
Everything the expert says
Right.
is relevant. So what you're saying, the news articles, I mean, they're the expert. they should be able to tell us why, what they're recommending.
Question should be directed to them, not us. They're the ones that would be able to answer it.
And then the motion is strictly to do a salary study, it's not limiting that salary study to years, it's just do a salary study.
Great. Okay, now I'm gonna call the question.
Supervisor Moran?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
We are going to vote on, I just need to get clarification. If I vote a certain way, be it yes or no, if I vote yes on this, that doesn't mean we approve the salary study that comes, we still have to have
We haven't
approval
seen
for whatever
it.
comes.
Yeah, we don't even have
Okay.
a person, much less a salary study. Of course not.
Okay, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna move to old business, and excuse me, because apparently nobody brought their policy of posting financial and other records on the website. So hopefully I have one. I broke my toe on that, I'm going to absolutely get one that's coming. Sorry. All right, let's see what I got. Yep. Oh. Susan, you're literally taken, like, where's earlier, okay, I
Can
have.
we change the order if we have Trustee McKenzie leaving? Of, looking at the tax abatement maybe first? I don't know, is that what you're?
Well, I thought you were so eager on this, so I have the changes, I just have it in this form, because here, like, somebody was typing this up, and it definitely was not me, so,
Can we, because of,
I have no problem moving the order or tabling.
let's
this.
tabling it because.
Good, let's motion to table this till the January meeting.
Second.
Oh, we have time.
We're not gonna have time, I guarantee you. We have a closed session, or potential closed session. Can you call the roll?
Supervisor Moran?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
All right, this is the one that we made. She's got the changes, and this is what we need to do, so. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so, at the last board meeting, it had been requested by Trustee Sweeney, that Carrie Lynn redo, and I had also requested, because there was some language that was not applicable to us with respect to a potential, this is discussion only, with respect to tax abatement. Now, this is gonna be a long discussion, then I might switch these two and move to go into closed. All right, let's try. We've all got these ordinances. Carrie Lynn, did change it. So, Kurt, I assume, is here to answer any questions. Right? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly straightforward at this point. Again, there's not much for the board to do at this point.
No, we wouldn't be doing
This
this.
is the levy, yeah. But this is the form that the ordinance would take if and when the board does decide that an abatement is appropriate.
And this would be used, and she changed it in paragraph 2, that we could use funds arising from other sources, i.e. reserves. And she did caution against using the word reserves in there because that could make you some type of problem.
So one of the things I think she was gonna look into was the time frame. When can we actually, when is the earliest that we could initiate an abatement?
I frankly, I think you'd have to do it, you'd want to be sure you do it before the first installment, because once the county starts extending your levy, that's where it's going to be hard to take it back. So I think you probably want to do it within the first few months of the year. So January, February.
So you could do it before
But how do you
anything's
do it
taken
if
out,
you don't know
right?
what you're abating?
Well, we pass it, you have to have a levy first, obviously. Yeah, and then once you figure it out, if you don't need that, you'd have to.
But how do we
pass
know
it.
that we don't need it until?
That's the problem, because once they extend it, you're not going to be able to bring too much back. So you'd have to figure that out before they really extend too much of the actual levy, because the county's not going to be able to unwind the entire levy. They levy as a whole against the entire township. It's not just our levy. So you'd have to make sure you do it before the first installment would be our recommendation.
And when would the first installment?
It's usually like March.
March 1st?
Yeah.
I
So-
thought the second was bigger.
It's really just the way that they would calculate the levy. And I frankly, it'd probably be difficult for them to abate it once they've already extended a portion of it.
So when do we find out how much of our requested levy is actually going to?
But we don't find that, so.
That's after the fact, because they extend it and then it's who pays and, you know, things like that, so that's gonna be later on.
We get that report, that tax levy report, that, or tax agency rate report, I think we got that in July. So, it's way,
So it'd be like, just a wild guess.
yeah.
So is it possible to get first crack at budgets in like for the January?
No. Not for the January, for February, yes. We have our budget meetings set around all of January. Plus, we have to put the salary study, and, I mean, a budget is not going to, our budget meetings will take all of January at least.
See, we can't have budget meetings too early.
Because they haven't spent the money,
Well, yeah, when we
we
have
don't have
budget
any
meetings, of course,
idea.
I don't cut you off, but we look to see, of course, what we spent last fiscal year. So
Right.
I have to wait as close to the, you know, to February, so I can see all 12 months, you know.
So
we
can
have
I
to
make
do
a
early,
suggestion,
but,
because the way I've done budgets before is to use projections based on, like, you know, using a cutoff. So we have through November, right now.
Yeah, we can do
So
that.
you can project
Right.
using an average, a rolling
Sure, we
average.
should do that.
So, you know, for every line item, and then we're gonna have, I think, earlier numbers to, plus line item numbers, like we talked about before.
Right.
To get line item budget items, and I think Chris will appreciate that too. I think that if we start doing that, we're gonna start making better decisions. That's my personal opinion as the accountant.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm
If
glad
there
to
were
work the budget.
61 days in January, it'd be all with me. But I mean, the concept, yes, I totally agree with the concept.
But it's a, you know, this is an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Right.
So it's just getting the formulas.
I know, it's meeting with the budget. with the-
No, what I'm saying, the first step is
Oh, you mean
to
to
project
project. Oh,
out
I know
instead
what
of
you're
waiting
talking about.
for the actual fiscal year numbers, and
Right.
then,
But we need to look at last February to see, you know, what we
Right.
spent, to get an idea of
Right.
last year's and, you know, average that in as well.
Right,
you know, before
then we also
those
have to
numbers come in.
remember that we have some extraordinarily, we're,
Right.
we're doing a contingency fund this year because we were taught things we didn't know, that that's how you spend your reserves. And also legal expenses, which is not part of capital fund, and operating fund. And, so we have all those things, that we, are gonna put into that. That won't be projected out, that will, you'll be okay with that, though, right?
well, legal fees will be projected out.
Legal fees will be projected out, yes. But like the contingency,
Yeah, I know.
Carrie Lynn had suggested a minimum of 150 in the, because so
I'm
then
gonna
you can
have to
spend.
get some more information about that, because I don't know.
That's the manner she informed us at many board meetings and last year. That's how you spend the reserves, so we can't keep cut the budget, cut the levy, and not spend, otherwise how are you gonna spend the reserves?
Yeah, we just need a little bit more, I need a little bit more clarification.
That's fine. Alright, so, with respect to this, though, yeah, I'm sure that they can give you projections, certainly in time for February, if not the January meeting. We should be able to do it by the January meeting, if it's just projections, Maybe.
Just to get an idea of what,
Right,
Yeah.
that are not going to be held to, I mean,
Right, because it's, yes.
yeah, no, that would be good.
to get a feel for, what I would like to see, and if I were the consultant on this, I would say, let's look at it to see how close we are to what we levy as a first view on the abatement issue.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, maybe. Maybe the budget. Because we're not gonna get what we love.
No, but we're not gonna know that until we
No. I didn't make.
Well, I would make mention too that we do have the problem with the accumulation of funds in our general assistance. And that does impact what we need to do with the abatement.
I don't know why.
Because we have over 2.5 times what the average of the last 3 years' expenditures is of general assistance. So right now, we are not in compliance and we are violating the law. So if somebody were to challenge us, they could bring us to court on this issue. And I think that we have to be in a position, since the budget, since the levy that we just voted on was only approved for a 5% decrease, we have not made a significant enough cut, and we're going to be in violation, continued violation of what our excess funds are in general assistance.
Well, our attorney has told me that we are within the law, not I'm not explaining anything, she's not here. This is for discussion. You wanted the thing changed to reflect.
We have 2.4 million right now.
I'm trying to
in our
spend
fund-
it.
In our fund balance. You're trying to spend it? That should be returned to the taxpayers. That is over taxation. That's an excess of funds. And this law was codified and put into place because we have excess of funds.
I thought you guys want to use it.
They want to give
I want to give it back
back
to the taxpayer. We have overtaxed.
You can't.
We have had
do
Joe
that.
Egan come up here and Donna Adam come up here and other
Yes,
people
I
that have given us
understand.
feedback that we are overtaxing.
But
It's a very simple thing.
Stop.
We have to return money.
Stop. I know, I've heard your grandstanding many, many months. And I have no problem, wanting to
It feels
give
like
money
it fell on
back.
deaf ears
This
because
is
we
not,
approved the levy with only a 5% cut.
abating the
We did not
levy
address the general
abating the
assistance
levy
process.
does not give money back to the taxpayers.
Oh,
It isn't. It's going to abate
It's going to allow us
if we
lower the
levy
change the
too
levy.
much. But the levy itself, oh, I can't explain it again. I'm sorry, I just can't. This has been explained,
I think-
so it's
My
not
understanding
a
is what we could
rebate.
pay down our reserve.
I'm
So
trying
if
to
we had
pay
a
down
lower
our
levy,
reserve.
we would actually, I mean, if we actually cut our
That's what
levy,
I'm trying to do.
we would be able to eat it our
That's what I'm
reserve.
trying to do.
So we need to abate money back to the taxpayer.
It's not the conversation we're having.
The conversation we're having is on abatement and how to make the abatement happen. It was my comment that I made several times at the last meeting that government just does not have a good track record when it comes to saying, we'll tax you now and abate later, and the abatement actually happening. That's what my problem is. And I think Claire came up with a fantastic way, because you're hearing now that the levy's been issued, right? And now the taxes are coming out, that we may not be able to do an abatement because.
That's not what I said.
But
I said
Claire-
an abatement
but
is
Claire-
not,
but Claire-
listen, I said an abatement is not a rebate.
I am not.
That's,
It's
no,
not.
I'm not finished. I wasn't
I'm
finished
sorry.
talking.
An abatement is
I
not a
wasn't finished
rebate.
talking.
That's what I said.
I got it right now. And what I'm hearing from Claire was a good idea that we use projections to get
It is a
around
good
the problem
idea. I've
Of
agreed.
that, of the fact that, we can't come up with actual numbers till after March. And that we're not gonna know what we actually receive from the taxpayers until July, because part of it is our taxpayers aren't gonna pay their taxes because they're gonna leave and not pay them.
Okay.
So I think it was a very good point, but we have to expand our thought process to include that we're not here to spend the money only. We're here to give the money back to the taxpayer. But I've never said I wanted to spend the money, call up charities if you want some bill. I've never gone down that route. The money was taken before, it was taken too much, and that money should go back.
Okay.
So I have a question for the attorney. Is it fair to look at this like, that this is just like we have amended budgets, that this would amend the levy in effect to change it and abate it?
That's essentially what we do.
Okay,
Yes.
so what we're doing is abating and taking a deeper cut possibly, if we can afford to do it, and according to what you said. I mean, I think we are held to that by law, that we have to, we should have cut the GA levy by 30%. But, we have that option to now abate and have basically an amended levy. And if we have that flexibility, then that's what we should do. And I just want to be on record as saying I'm very concerned, and because I think that we have to follow the accumulation of funds. I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're referring to.
I was saying that if you're amending how much is coming in, you're not amending the actual levy ordinance, you're amending how much money is being actually taken or extended by the county.
Right, which would be a new,
That we won't know
thing,
that.
a change to
So,
what we're requesting.
Which basically means they're giving the money that the taxpayers spent to other communities.
that they've already spent.
That they've already spent. So basically, you're taking the
That's not true.
taxpayers' money.
That's not what
That is not true.
That's not what I read before. So let's take one step at a time.
I agree. This is our, you guys
So
wanted
if we
her.
abate before
So
the money is
I have to
taken.
say something. The point that Carrie Lynn was doing was to abate this so that it would come from the reserves. That's, okay,
Correct.
okay. But that's not the same as
So that
like
you said, I
cutting-
want to spend what's in reserve, not.
Yes. This,
Spend it on operating
Right.
expenses
Right.
instead of.
right.
spending.
What aren't you getting of what I'm saying? It's not the same as abating the entire GA levy. That's not what I'm saying. Carrie Lynn, by changing it, the language, since we have no debts, is saying that we're going to abate any extra so that it comes from the reserves, to draw down the reserves. That's what it's saying.
So it's different than from
That's-
abating the actual levy, so we spend the reserves on our bills. We're not doing it that way.
Well, if you can read the second paragraph.
Right.
It says, Maine Township has funds arising from
Correct.
other sources,
Yes.
which may be lawfully used to pay for operating expenses.
Correct.
So that is where your reserves.
Right.
And it's
That's
your
the reference to
other
the
operating expenses.
That's the change from the previous abatement resolution that Jan drafted.
Yeah, the concern I have is that, my understanding was the abatement we wouldn't take in the money in the first place. In other words, we have a levy, but then we don't take in a certain amount of money in the first place as a result of the abatement.
I think you'll probably
That's how it
have to,
happened. That's
If we
correct.
did it early enough, right.
I think,
And
yeah,
then we would be compelled to reach into our reserves to pay the budget
Right.
because the effect of our levy is reduced. If this is the language that provides for that, great. If it's not, then it has to be addressed, but that's how I.
well, I wasn't viewing this as like a second chance in January, re-voting on the levy. That's not what this is for.
This is.
And I don't think
what I
that's
just
what's
said.
clear.
What I just said is what's, right.
Okay, so I think those questions are much better addressed at the January meeting where we would vote, or if it gets put out to, whatever meeting we're voting at, but it can certainly be on the January agenda, because I think Karen Lynn, no offense,
No thank you.
or you can,
Because what I'm saying is you're saying an abatement, but does the money stop the levy money from coming in, or does the abatement to go around the levy and go into the reserves? I don't want the second, I want.
I have no idea.
It will abate, the county won't extend that portion of our levy, so we will not collect that amount.
Our first tax bill comes out March 1st. You still have to wait for the state equalizer and everything else to come into play. So our second tax bill comes August 1st. So in that time, that will come into play.
Great, right.
So, but when you,
As long as the abatement comes from stops the money from coming into the levy.
It's always the second tax bill that would be effective on second installment.
That's what I thought. That's what I was saying earlier. That it's
It
the
won't be the
second-
first tax bill. It'll always
Not
be
the
the
first.
second installment.
It's just going to be dependent on how the county calculates it. I think you want to get it to them as early as you can to ensure that they're not going to, it's not going to, the way that they have to extend it, that it doesn't, the equalizer is the big problem, I guess.
Right, because they won't have it, right, so they can't not extend something they haven't even figured out yet.
They'll try. Yeah.
so that the.
No, I mean,
I don't-
you know what I'm
Excuse
saying.
me, isn't the equalizer on the property taxes?
Mhm.
And they're
Right.
in arrears,
Established-
right? So
Well, that's
they're paid-
established by the state of Illinois.
Right.
Okay, but they're paid in arrears, correct?
Yeah, well,
So
we're paying,
we're
we're
paying
paying
from
2018
2017.
and 2019.
Right, so what I meant was, so if you levy a certain amount and you try to get the property taxes, they're paying the taxes in arrears. If you don't accept that amount, you're essentially giving our taxpayer dollars that you're accepting from the taxpayers to other communities, because that's what the county does, it distributes it to other communities. That's what Bob Porter explained when he was.
I think Pete made that same.
I would disagree with that
Well,
analysis.
that's what
And I
it is,
think
that's how
that
they do it.
Exactly how it's done.
if the
That's
question,
exactly
I think Georgie and Lamas had some
I'm
input
sorry,
on that as
I'm
well.
sorry. If the question is either we grab it improperly or someone else grabs it improperly, I've never bought that.
But you're wrong.
So, no, we just leave that money we don't need. The law says we
You
levy
have
for what we need.
opinion, but your opinion
And
is
I'm not done
correct.
speaking, I'm not done speaking. So we levy for what you need, and whatever other governmental bodies do is really not something within my purview and my vote.
So it's better to give our taxpayer dollars
It's
to other communities?
it's better to do the right thing, whether or not you think it really has an impact or
So the
whether
right
it's so
thing-
bad, whether you think
It's better to look at
So,
our age.
excuse me, so the right thing
No,
is to take the money
You know
from
what,
the taxpayers and give it to other communities?
actually, would you guys let this go now? You had discussion on it, and let me
No, I'm
get some
finished.
more
I
for
had
you
my
information,
hand
because
raised.
you know what, you're just going around in circles.
I had
And this is like,
this
now
is
you have
$11 million in surplus.
Okay.
Excess fund.
Yeah,
in
but you know
surplus.
what?
It's better to return the money that's not needed
Can I
or
answer
not
something to that,
levy for
Susan,
what we
please?
do
Please.
not need. We are overtaxing.
Please,
If we've sat and listened to the people that have come up to the podium,
Two people.
that are residents that have spoken,
To say.
they have spoken on behalf of the
Two people.
community to say that we're overtaxing.
But you know what?
I think we
They told
need to
them,
listen
Guys,
to
I'm
the
not
people that say
going to
we are
do this.
overtaxing.
I'm not doing this.
can I offer something?
Susan, you have literally talked almost 80% of the comments of this meeting. I'm going to let trustee, Assessor Craig,
Can I- can I
this is
just-
her
can I get
area,
the information
make
on this,
a
please,
comment,
for the
and then
trustees?
we're done with
And
this
bring it to you in
discussion.
January's meeting.
I
I'll get some clarification, some information.
That would be
Clerk's
great.
office.
And
I'll
then
work
I'll
on
take care
that
of
for
it.
you.
Get you guys some
Um,
clarification.
And tell you how that, you know, our timeframe, our dates, when it would come into play and how it would be effective to our citizens, residents. Would that,
That would be very helpful, could we get?
okay,
it
can I,
earlier so
you know,
that we-
to just to get this closed off right now and,
Thank
because
you.
you know what, I've never done an abatement, so I need to get a little bit further information on this, and I'd be very willing to do that because I'm very curious. So if you let me do that and let this go no further right now, because it's kind of senseless what we're talking about right now. So let me get the information for you, if you would be so kind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving right along. I'm gonna make a motion to go into closed session for a discussion of IMRF expenses and reimbursement under closed section
2C11, pending litigation.
2C11, along with another litigation matter, which I'm informed by attorney, we can do both at the same time. Can I have
Before
a
I vote, I
second?
would like to ask the attorney.
Can I have a second on my motion?
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Now, there can be discussion.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Is this a requirement that we go into closed session to discuss this IMRF reimbursement issue?
And since it's a pending appeal in front of an administrative tribunal, you can't discuss that in closed session. It can only be related to the appeal itself, though.
Can we discuss it in open session?
I would recommend against it since it's still pending in front of the tribunal.
So it's not something that can be shared with the public?
It will certainly be a matter of public record eventually, but at this point, since it's still there's been no final determination, there's still a potential of a final hearing, we would always recommend not discussing that in open session.
Give me a motion and a second. I'm calling the question. Clerk Jalamas, can you call roll?
Supervisor Moran?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Garaboto?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
No.
Okay, so, oh. I was gonna switch those
You know what, is it possible that you can do personnel?
two. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I switch those two?
Because it,
Okay, so keep that vote, all of that's the same. Right now, we're going to do personnel, because, yeah, I completely screwed that up.
poor girl will be here forever.
I know, this poor girl. Okay, so let me pass out, this, will you just take a bunch and pass it down? Sure. Thanks. Okay, so, back in, I'm sorry, Claire, what month did you say we passed this down?
It was in June.
Okay, back in June, we had done a stipend and agreed to have Austin work additionally to his full-time job and mainstay over in GA as a co-office manager, which is what he's been doing as he learns the entire GA apparatus. And so, he is now going to be there full-time, right now at the same salary. You pay the stipend, that's not an issue. So Rich is, when he had done the original interviews, there were 3 people that were very much tied at being in Boston. Okay, Rich, tell me.
Bronca.
That's what I thought, I just didn't want to mispronounce it. Okay. And then another person, and luckily for us, Bronca or Blanca?
Bronca.
Bronca was still available. And we do have her resume in your packets. And what I just passed down to you is a cost savings at the current time. As I think I actually didn't announce this, so I'm gonna announce it. Marcia Warnick, Director of General Assistance, has retired. And that salary was a very high salary. She retired after 38 years. And at the end of November. And we also have another retirement, that being Dagmar Rootson, which will be discussed another time. But with respect to this, so Marcia Warnick has not been replaced, and I'm in the process of meetings with GA, restructuring and redoing all of it with an eye to, cutting the administrative costs substantially. Along those lines, however, Rich needed a replacement for Austin. And that is what is being proposed with Bronco. So, I'm making a motion to hire Bronco. I have to find her resume so I don't mangle her name. I'm so sorry.
Just tell us what it is.
Bronco Matic. Salary $32,000, starting January 7th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Can I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, it is now open to discussion.
Was this posted on the website?
No, it had been previously posted. He went back to his list of the people who had responded.
We did put that in the local newspaper.
Right, we did.
And how many people responded before?
3.
Rich and I interviewed 3 people.
Those being Austin, Bronco, and this
Carol,
third
Lady Carol.
person, who they also interviewed this time around. Hearing no discussion,
Supervisor Moran?
yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee McKenzie?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
You only had to sit tonight wanting to be welcomed aboard. We shall see you on January 7th. Enjoy the new year. And stop by and say hello.
Definitely will do.
Thank you so much for coming and for staying.
Definitely been an eye-opener.
Now we'll get into resignation.
There's no take back. Oh, there's no take backs. And somebody asked a question if we had a trouble routine.
A what?
Attracting.
Yeah. I wonder why.
All right, we are now adjourning the closed session. I'm also excusing Claire, trustee Claire McKenzie. I have a wonderful trip. Happy New Year, and same to you, Ryan.
Yeah.
And try not to fall asleep at the lawyer. He wants to stay. That was priceless. Good night. Good night. All right. Motion to go back into open session. Can I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Clerk Yalamas, can you take the roll?
Supervisor Moran?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Carabota?
Yes.
Trustee Sweeney?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now we're up to officials' reports. I'm going to waive my report. I already made it with respect to the retiring personnel. And, anybody else?
I'll make my report.
Just want to make a quick comment. Thank you to Clean Up Give Back. It did a wonderful project on Robin Drive, collected many huge garbage bags of garbage. They let me out there to participate a little bit with them through Donna Adam on December 8th. And the residents on Robin Drive were really happy helping clean up that alley portion in the back. It was bad. And then also you just had a recent one,
Yes.
Susan, you participated in. What was that,
I
Dave?
hope to.
Yeah, ultimately.
Please keep up the great work and Godspeed everyone and Happy New Year.
Yes.
Oh, and Happy New Year, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, trustee Sweeney.
I would just like to second Dave's comments to Donna Adam, because she's really beautifying our community. So thank you, Donna Adam, for all that you've done on a volunteer basis. So it's tremendous.
Alright, so next we have administrator, you waive your report? Attorney, you waive your report? Clerk?
Nothing to add to my written report other than Happy New Year.
Alright, Happy New Year to all, and I am making a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Having a motion and a second.
Some service?
Ah,
That's a good one.
yeah, that really was great. It's like, all in favor? Happy New Year. Whoa. Wow, it's only 9:40.